All right, hello, this is Jeff Scott of Blackhawk Technical College. I've been going over the first 11 chapters of AngularJS, JavaScript, and jQuery all in one Sam's Teach Yourself. I've completed the first 7 chapters, and before I go on to Chapter 8, which is what I'm going to do right now, I just wanted to mention to you that if you do go out for either the 152, 167, or the 152, 164, which is 167 is the Ajax and JavaScript website development, 164 is the design and implementation projects or DIP class. I put out some stuff that I did last semester. So there are 6 lectures on different jQuery examples, and another example on HTML5 form validation, and yet another example on jQuery form validation. So there's 8 additional lectures in addition to the 7 I've already completed. And the associated source code is also out there under book source, jQuery examples. And now that I think about it, I should also grab that jQuery examples, copy it to the P drive of each class. If I don't do these things when I'm thinking about them, I forget to do them. Okay, so I already put that one there. They might both be out there already, I don't know. And they are. Good. All right, so let's get started then on Chapter 8, which begins in the book on page 217 and is entitled Navigating and Manipulating jQuery Objects and DOM Elements with jQuery. First thing they talk about in there is chaining jQuery operations together for efficiency. And they give a good example right here where they're coming in here and they're saying they're creating a new variable that's called content div, and it's assigning it to the div with an ID of content. All right. Then they're creating first P, which they're saying is content div.children. All right, so that's all the first paragraphs that are in there. And then we're saying we want to add and make all of them bold, and any associated spans that are in there we want to make red. Well, there's nothing wrong with doing it this way, and in some ways it's done very well because the names make sense, and it's very iterative. I mean, it goes in lockstep type of order. However, you could take these 5 lines and create them as just one line by using chaining. All right, so again, it's telling you to do all of this stuff. And that's the first thing that they mention here. So that's our first objective. Then we talk about ways to filter the DOM elements in a jQuery object, method to use jQuery objects to traverse the DOM, iterating through each element in the jQuery object set. All right, notice jQuery selectors return a jQuery object representing 0 or more elements that match the selector definition. So in the same way here, if we did not have a div with an ID of content, it's not that the line would be wrong, but there would be no matches. All right, as your web pages become more complex, you will find that selectors do not do everything you need. jQuery objects provide additional functionality and enhance selector results by allowing you to easily refine the list of objects. And as it says, the following selections are going to go over. I'm going to remove some of this stuff there. The following selection or sections talk about how to chain. All right. So as mentioned, one of the great things about jQuery is that you can chain multiple operations together into a single statement. This reduces, all right, and probably makes it easier for you to read things. So let's do this. Let's actually go in here. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to copy it. Come over to here and paste. Unfortunately, you can see how well this copies in here. There is a reason, as usual, or a method to my madness here. All right, so there it is as 5 different lines. Then we've got it again in here and we have it in here as one line. And I'm going to leave it the way that it is, but then I'm going to copy this one line, and I'm going to show you yet another way that you can do this. Quite often, people like to set theirs up like this. The line that is right, I don't know how that happened, or how that happened. But the line that is right here, where you put it all on one line, is exactly the same as the line right here, where you separate. Many developers like to separate it like this because it really shows you exactly what's happening. But whether you use this way, or this way, or this way, as mentioned in the book, they're all doing the same thing. As it says, the code finds the div element with an ID of content, then finds the first P element inside and changes the font weight to bold. Then it finds the span elements that are inside of that P and changes their color to red. Now it says it only took 5 lines, but you can cut it down into 1. Again, because each of the operations returns a jQuery object, you can chain as many together as you would like. All right. Next, let's quickly look here at filtering. Bottom half of page 218. jQuery objects provide a good set of methods that allow you to alter the DOM objects represented in a query. So the key is what the author does in here is he kind of gives you, or what they do, is they give you the syntax, then they show you an example. Syntax, example, all the way down. So some of the things that are in here. If you want to check for equality, you can check for indices. But remember that that starts with index 0. All right, if you want the first element of a group, you can use first. The last element of a group, you can use last. Using the has, as it says, reduces the set to those elements that have descendant elements that match the selector or contain the specified DOM element. If there's a problem with this stuff, it's just in the fact that there are so many different ways of doing the same thing. If you noticed in here, as it says, this reduces to only divs that have P or paragraph child elements. There's a not, which is sort of the opposite of the has. Again, reduces the set to match the filter. The filter can be a selector or other things. So this selects element where the class equals menu, but are not span elements. Equal has it, equal doesn't have it. All right. Here's slice, and you've used slice, if you may or may not remember that, in the JavaScript class. But here, as it says, you can remove elements before a start and after an end. So as it says here, this selects the elements with indices 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And I believe it doesn't just select them, I believe it removes them. All right. Now they go through a bunch of this stuff, and the bottom line is they're almost always, when they give you one of these types of tables, they're going to then link you to the api.jquery.com page. So if you want more, for instance, if I do go out there, you'll notice that it's got all these extensions and more, some of which were not discussed. What's really nice about the help system in here is if I want, for example, the button selector, I can click on it. It'll show me an example. It'll give me a description. It'll show me pretty much the syntax, an additional note or two, but then the key thing here is there is an example. And under the demo here, it actually shows you exactly what's happening there. Okay? All right. Bottom of page 219 and going on to pages 220, 221, 222, and 223. traversing the DOM using jQuery objects. And as mentioned there, another important set of methods are the DOM traversal methods, which enable you to select elements based on relationships to other elements. All right? And they show you an example here that if this is the beginning of a web page, a DOM will be built based off of that. All right? And as mentioned, the P elements and the UL element, they're siblings and they're all direct descendants of the div tag. The div is a direct parent of the body tag. The LIs are direct descendants of the UL tag. And as they mentioned, jQuery DOM traversal methods allow you to move from one layer of the DOM to another to select elements, and not just select them, but to at least potentially change what's there. All right? jQuery objects do an incredible number of methods that allow you to traverse the DOM. All right? And you're going to see many of these as we go on. And I've said this to you before. First of all, I don't have the time nor the inclination right now to sit there and go through each one of these examples. It's just not in me. But the best way for you to learn is to create a real simplistic page and then just do some manipulation. That's what I've done in these examples that are in here. Basically, they're just a simple, for most of them, they're just a simple jQuery page that has in it, I don't know, an H1 tag for a title, some paragraphs, a button maybe with a text box, and an unordered list. And they're just manipulation after manipulation after manipulation of these. All right? All right. So on the middle of page 223, the author talks about looking at some additional jQuery object methods. It says when you filter the jQuery object or traverse the DOM, you should be aware of these additional methods that you can use with filtering and traversing elements to iterate through the DOM in the jQuery, add additional elements, end filtering, and test items. All right, so as the author has been doing on the bottom of 223 and on 224, what he does there is he gives you examples of each one of these. He shows you the syntax followed by an example. Syntax, example. All right? Some really good material in here. All right. A couple more before we go through the big example that's on there, that's in the chapter here. First is the .each. And as I mentioned, .each is one of the most important jQuery object methods, as it allows you to traverse all the elements and perform actions on them individually. So you can do something like this. In other words, it allows you to do the equivalent of looping. So as mentioned there in that second paragraph, the .each method allows you to specify a function that will be run on each element. So we want to run this, for example, on each P tag. The function will be passed an index number as the first element, and inside it uses the this variable. So as it says there, in this example, it loops through all paragraph elements and sets the content to say this is element. So the first time through, it should say this is element 0, this is paragraph 0, etc. There is a map function explained on the middle of page 225. As it says, it also iterates through each element in the jQuery object set. It is similar to each, but it says there's one big difference. .each will return the same jQuery object, but map will return a new jQuery object with the values returned in each iteration. So the following example there iterates through all LI elements and returns a comma-separated string of the element's text. Let's try to look at an example of this one here. So we'll copy. I'll paste that in for right now. I don't know if it'll run like that or not, but we're going to see. Well, it did not give me an error message. But I also don't think I asked for it to do anything with it, so... Well, it didn't like what I did. Put it under document ready, but I don't know if that's going to help or not. Well, didn't like that either. What I was trying to show you was, I believe what's going to happen there is it's going to take each one of these and it's going to set them up so that it will be on a line by itself. In other words, let me just grab this. What I thought the output of that was going to be was it was going to look like this. Let me get rid of all this junk here. So it was going to be Jeff, comma, Sandy, comma, Taylor, comma, Mackenzie, comma, Chloe. All right, maybe I did something wrong, I don't know, but that's what I thought was going to happen, because what we have actually told it to do in there is to go in and map our way through here, all right, and join together basically every one of those LIs with a comma between them. It doesn't even look like you put a blank space in there. I think the alert, I don't know, something is goofed up on it. It doesn't like something that I'm trying to do there. All right. Next, there's a try it yourself that's on pages 225, 226, 227, 228, and the top of page 229. And as always, rather than me keying this stuff in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the finished product. But first, let's talk our way through this, because there literally are in here. The code itself is shown on pages 228 and 229. But there are 11 steps in here, and let's go over these. So in this example, you learn the process of using a jQuery selector to find all paragraph elements. Then you use the map function to read the content and create a new span box. You also use the .each to iterate through the paragraph elements and restyle them. So again, the code is all found here, here, and here. But before we do that, so they tell you to go and create all this stuff in the head. Add the script and the link tags, okay, to put in your jQuery right here, to put in your own stuff that you're writing right here, and to put in your CSS file right there, all right? Then it says add the code in lines 11 through 19 of listing 8.1. So in other words, this pretty much in here, this is your body. So there'll be a button, and there'll be another button. One button will say each, and one will say map. And then you've got colors and numbers after them. All right? So what you can see what's going to happen here is it looks like you're going to make each thing that color, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, plus the size of each will be based off of that number that you're putting in there. All right, so add the following code that will add a click element to the first button. This button uses a simple each function to iterate its way through. It gets the string, splits it into color and size. Color, size, etc. And then sets the font size and color properties based on what it was split into. Then we're supposed to add a click handler to the second button, which uses a map function to iterate its way through. Again, get the string and the size and split it. This time, however, return a JavaScript object with a color and a size attribute. The get at the end converts the results of the map to a JavaScript array named items. So as it says, there's the initial page. When you click on each, it should look like this, so you can see what's happening in there. Again, the idea with the each is it iterates its way through. It can change the physical appearance of this, but it isn't changing the values themselves. All right, so the colors are being set by the first parameter that's in there. The size is being set by the second parameter that's in there. Then when we click on map, we're actually returning new values. We're returning a span or some kind of an element, a box, that's going to be the color, that's the first parameter, and the size, that's the second parameter. So again, what I've done in here someplace in my mess of stuff, is I've got source code, Chapter 8, and this is DOM manipulation. All right, so when I click each, there they are. So I have basically changed those into this. When I click map, I'm bringing back a whole new object. But in both cases, what I'm doing is I'm taking this string that's put in there as a single string, and I am tokenizing it into two different parameters. The first parameter is used to set the color. The second parameter is used to set the size. All right, then there's a second example on pages 229, 230, 231, and 232. As it says in this second example that we have right here, using jQuery objects to traverse the DOM, we use jQuery objects to dynamically access DOM elements relative to their position from each other. The purpose is to illustrate how easy it is to use jQuery objects to navigate and find other DOM elements. The results are a simple web page that allow users to input ratings and provide a graphical indicator of their value. Again, the code is shown here, and that's in the book on listings 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6 on pages 231 and 232. All right. Again, let's just take a look at the finished product here. So this is Traverse DOM. There it is. Notice if I put a 3 in, I put a 2 in, and I put a 1 in. Change that 1 to a 4. Change that 2 to a 5. It should, if I put a 6 in here, grabs the biggest number that's available. If I put a -5 in here, doesn't recognize anything. All right. So why, when I put a -1 in there, did it pump it up to 4? I'm not even sure. I'm sure it's the way the code was written, though. All right, so this listing right here, it's pretty simple. It's the same listing that you see in figure 8.4 on page 231. And the JavaScript that's in here that's allowing us to traverse the DOM, this, pretty simple, is the same stuff that you see on page 232 in figure 8.5. So basically what we're doing is we're telling it to come in here, read through, grab whatever value that we're putting in, and light up the associated number in here. So as you can see, 5, 4, or 3, 4, 4. All right. There's absolutely no, okay, there's no checks that are being made in here for the size to make sure that you're only entering a number between 1 and 5. That was quick, down and dirty. Not really a whole lot probably on my end there, but that pretty much is it for Chapter 8. So as mentioned, in this lesson, you learned about jQuery and JavaScript objects to find and navigate your way through DOM elements. Okay? So again, that'll pretty much finish it up for this chapter. When I come back, I will continue on into Chapter 9, which is applying jQuery, JavaScript and jQuery events for richly interactive web pages. All right, so we'll go through that example next.